Alrighty. Let me make sure this is on. It is on. Okay, here we are. We're doing the Dr. Jimbo Love Show featuring Seth Matthew remotely today down in Salida, Colorado. And behind me, you can see the Arkansas River. And it is absolutely a beautiful fall Sunday. So Seth is back at Brothers. Anybody who's looking to watch some great NFL games today, I know the Steelers are playing the Bills right now as we speak. The score was 10-3 when I left. Looked like they were just starting the second quarter. But go down to Brothers. It's at the Shops of Northfield, just north of I-70, in between Central Park exits and the Quebec exits. So just go over to Northfield, the Shops at Northfield, and you'll find Brothers. Go on in. Seth will put on whatever game you would like to see today. So today's going to be a little bit of a different show, if I don't fall down. I'm not going to cover any NFL games. They're in progress right now. I'm going to just pretty much go through and just highlight some of the college games from yesterday and talk a little bit about our great women's basketball team who won the World Cup game a week ago. So we'll definitely get the segment in for the women today. So please stay tuned, women, and also too, don't be afraid to share our show. We always will cover something that concerns women's athletics worldwide. So you'll always have a home here at the Dr. Jimbo Love Show featuring Seth Matthew. All right, so let's get into some of the games. The first game I'm going to talk about is the TCU-Kansas game. TCU was ranked 17th, Kansas was ranked 19th, and College Game Day was there for the first time in Lawrence, and the kids really turned out well. I mean, there was a whole hillside just full of KU students. And there's a couple Power 5 schools, one being Syracuse, that has never had College Game Day, so we'll start knocking those off as we go along. Maybe if Syracuse can win again next week, they'll go. They're 5-0 and now they're 6-0. Or they were idle actually this week. I'm sorry. So they're still 5-0, but they were ranked as high as 17th. We'll talk about that in the projected poll that's going to come out later on today, early tomorrow. Kansas TCU 38-31. TCU pulled it out, spoiling Kansas's College Game Day experience. But what a good competitive games. It was 10-3 at halftime, and then both teams scored 28 points in the second half, and it was just a great finish for if you're a TCU fan. The quarterback for TCU was 23. His name is Dugan. He was 23 of 33 for 308 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. KU's had 2 different quarterbacks, Bean and Daniels. Both were 16. Well, Bean was 16 for 24, 62 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, and Jay Daniels came in and was 5 for 10 for 89 yards. The big thing was Quentin Johnson for TCU. He had 14 receptions, folks, for 206 yards. That's really something. Anytime you can get a receiver to get the ball that many times, obviously he was just burning their D-backs that Kansas had, and great job for him. Happy for Quentin Johnston. Next game would be Tennessee versus LSU, and Tennessee was ranked 8th. They're projected to go as high as 6. They beat LSU 40-13. It was 23-7 at halftime. Tennessee never was in doubt, and Hooker had a pretty good game. He didn't really have Heisman caliber kind of stats, but he was 7 for 27 for 239 yards and 2 touchdowns. Before we go any further, I'm going to pull some more games up from my phone. I'm going to be quiet for just a second. I want to see if you can just hear this beautiful river. The water that you see behind me makes it all the way to the Mississippi River in Arkansas, and then eventually goes into the Gulf of Mexico. and we are in Salida, which is considered the headwaters of the Arkansas River. It is an absolutely beautiful river. I wish I could have done the show up by the wave. They put in an artificial wave that everybody's been surfing. If you go to Instagram, the Dr. Jimbo Love Show, you can see I've posted a couple of the gentlemen doing it yesterday in 1-minute clips. It's pretty wild to watch these guys surf this wave. All right, so let's pull up college football today and see if I can find the rest of the games here. Again, like I said, this is going to be a different kind of show today. I'm kind of just going by shooting from the hip. But before we do that, let's do this. Let's go through the top 25 and how they fared. Alabama, still number one. They beat Texas A&M, not convincingly, not in Alabama fashion, 24-20. UGA wins against Auburn. There's a lot of talk about Auburn's coach being fired. One thing we'll talk about a little bit next week is how college football has changed tremendously. And because of social media, a lot of people think, and the alumni just not having any kind of patience, 5 coaches have been fired already. And we're only in week 6 of the college football season. I mean, most of the time, they give these guys a season to try to right the ship, see if they can make, pull out a bowl game. But in this case, and the new trend is that coaches are just being fired mid-season, and that way, I think, if you think about it, the AD then is not really responsible for the rest of the season. It kind of gives the AD a chance to bail and not be held responsible for his coaching choice if he fires him in the middle of the season. So Auburn is one of these coaches that right now is on the hot seat, so we'll watch him. He's from Boise State. He had tremendous success there, but he's struggling, and people in Auburn are not patient. Not when you have Alabama, who does so well continually every year. If you're the Auburn coach, you better produce, or you're going to be packing. Number 3, Ohio State. They won 49-20 versus they played Michigan State. That's the second loss for Michigan State. Remember, they lost to Minnesota earlier this season. Projected number 4 is Clemson. They won very easily against Boston College, and I didn't think they still had a football team there since Doug Flutie left. No, I shouldn't say that. That's mean to say. But again, in the ACC, you've got so many cupcakes, and that's, a big advantage for Clemson and the other teams in that league. They beat Boston College, as I said before, 31-3. Michigan is projected to drop to number 5. They beat Indiana 31-10. That game was pretty close for the first 3 quarters, and then Michigan poured it on in the 4th quarter and ended up winning. Projected number 6 is Tennessee, up from 8. Tennessee, they beat LSU really well. I mean, they just crushed them. LSU looked horrible, 40-13. So Tennessee's got a pretty good run going. But see, they haven't played Georgia or Alabama yet, and when they do, the reckoning will be brought to them. And I think we'll see Tennessee for what they really are. Number 7 is USC. Number 8, Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State looks pretty tough. They may be the best team in the Big 12. We'll have to keep watching them. Number 9, Lane Kiffin's got Ole Miss. They beat Vanderbilt. They crushed Vanderbilt. Everybody beats Vanderbilt. And Ole Miss ended up winning 52-28. Let's turn the page and see what's on the 10 through 25. Penn State was idle this week. They are number 10. Number 11 is UCLA. They're projected to jump from 18 up. And they had a nice win this weekend as well. TCU was 17. And Oregon, number 12 is TCU. They beat Kansas 38-31, as we said earlier. Number 13 is Oregon, 14 NC State. 15 Wake Forest, 16 Kansas State, moving their way up there after that big win over Oklahoma. And there we go, Syracuse, who's up from 23. They're projected to be as high as 17 in the AP poll. First time I've seen Syracuse ranked this high since, oh man, I mean, maybe we have to go back to Donovan McNabb, 1996. Number 18 is Mississippi State. KU lost to TCU. They were 19. They're projected to be at 19. Utah lost again. They lost to UCLA. That's who I was looking for. And Utah is 4-2. They've lost to Florida, okay, who's not even ranked, and then they just lost to UCLA. Why they're still 20, I don't know. Now remember, they were ranked really highly in the beginning of the year. They lost that opener to Florida. I don't think Utah is as good as they say. I don't know what has been going on that campus, but they have a lot of starters back from last year's team, and they're just not performing. Cincinnati 21. Notre Dame back in the top 25. They beat BYU in Las Vegas this weekend, and they will be at 22. BYU is 23, Baylor 24, and guess who sneaks into the top 25? My favorite campus, okay, in all of Virginia and everywhere east of the Mississippi is James Madison. Now, folks, you may think you know and have heard of James Madison. They have won a number of Division I AA, or the FSC or FCS championships, and they have now moved up and they are playing in the regular Division I conference, and they are 25th. Let me tell you, that campus, if you get a chance to drive down through the Shenandoah Valley, which I used to do all the time, I lived in New York and I went to the University of South Carolina, so I was always driving down through there. I would stop off in Harrisonburg, Virginia. That was kind of my resting spot, and sometimes I'd stay overnight. But that campus is my favorite campus east of the Mississippi by far. And if you get a chance to go see a game there at James Madison, do. New Market's right there, Staunton. It is just absolutely gorgeous. The Shenandoah Valley is a must-see, so put it on your list of to-go places. All right, let me go here and look at the rest of the games, and I'm going to just pull it up here real quick. College football. And what we're going to do is go through the rest of the games, and just so you can get an idea of how things fared yesterday. So remember, we talked already about Tennessee, and we also talked about TCU and Kansas. Let's talk about Arkansas. They lost to number 23 Mississippi State 40-17. Michigan and Indiana, we talked a little bit about that. That was 31-10 Michigan. Cincinnati 24, they beat South Florida 28-24. Oklahoma State 41, Texas Tech 31. Now that's a big win for Oklahoma State. A lot of people are talking about Oklahoma State. Are they for real? Well, this was one of their first tests, and we gave them a little bit of trouble for playing cupcakes in their first 2 or 3 weeks. Well, they came back strong and they beat a good Texas Tech team. And again, it was 41-31. Georgia crushed Auburn. Again, we talked a little bit about Auburn's coach being on the hot seat. It'll be interesting to watch. Will Auburn pull the trigger and fire their coach? I hope not. I think this trend of firing coaches prematurely is just ridiculous. And if you can't wait a full season, then that's just ridiculous to end up firing the head coach and then one of his assistants take over. So nothing really changes. And, let him finish the season. Let him see if he can squeak out maybe a 6-win season and go to a bowl game. Utah, UCLA, 42-32. UCLA beat Utah. Again, I don't think Utah should be in the top 25. Arizona State beat number 21 Washington, 45-38. So Herm Edwards, he's kind of been on the hot seat as well as coaches. This is a game that was a big game for him, and it may save him from being fired this season. They may give him another year just based on one game, because he's making improvements. Vanderbilt got crushed by Ole Miss, 52-28. Kansas State, Iowa, very, very competitive game, 10-9. Kansas State pulls it out and will remain in the top 25. They were ranked 20th last week. Notre Dame beat BYU, number 16 BYU. That will send BYU tumbling. I believe they are down to 24, while Notre Dame is at 23. Hey, look at this. My South Carolina Gamecocks won a big game against a really tough Kentucky team, 24-14. So go Gamecocks. Shane Beamer's got that squad in the right direction. It's pointing in the right direction. And me as a Gamecock fan couldn't be happier with that victory. Washington State, USC. USC beat Washington State. Remember, Washington State's a pretty tough team. They're sneaky good. And so you have number 6 USC 30-14. Washington State, I'll tell you, nobody should be looking past them because they can beat people. I mean, they beat Wisconsin. Of course, Wisconsin's struggling. Their coach has been fired. Wake Forest, number 15, beat Army 45-10. And we have NC State beating Florida State, another very, very good game. I wish I had time to go into this game. We'll talk maybe a little bit about this next week. But NC State 14, ranked 14th, beats Florida State 19-17. The late game at night was Oregon and Arizona. Oregon, number 12, beat Arizona 49-22. So that gives you kind of just a little rundown of all the different college teams. Let me see if I can kind of turn this a little bit just so you can see how beautiful this river is. It's just a gorgeous fall day down here, folks. And I'll turn it back this way. And we'll turn it up. And they just put in these are brand new housing right here. Normally that's just wooded area. And you can kind of see up the river here. And Salida is in that direction, downtown Salida. So, all right, well, let's talk a little bit about women's basketball. How's that sound? Let me pull out my stuff here and see if I can find it. Is this it? Oh, it is. Excelente. High organization out here in the wild. U.S. dominates on world stage. Aya Wilson and Brianna Stewart led the way for the U.S. team. Wilson and Stewart helped the U.S. to a 4th consecutive World Cup championship Saturday, and this was a week ago Saturday, with an 83-61 win over China, setting the world record in margins for a gold medal game. The coach Cheryl Reeve, has been doing a wonderful job with these ladies, and we want to congratulate them because they really dominated. And this is one of the most dominating women's basketball team we've seen in a number of years. This team left its mark on the World Cup as one of the most dominant teams in America's storied history, winning 4 straight gold medals and 30 games in a row in the tournament. Up next for this group is the 2024 Olympics in Paris. The Americans will be trying for an 8th consecutive gold medal. The U.S. 8-0 finished the World Cup averaging 98.8 points, just short of the mark held by the 1994 team that averaged 99.1. They won by an average of 40.8 points, topping the amount of the 2010 team. So, I mean, these guys are winning like dream team margins. I mean, an average of 40 points. You remember the 1992 Dream Team with Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, all the guys, Charles Barkley. They won by over 40 points a ball game. So that their dominance is really something. The game was a sellout with nearly 1,600 fans, the biggest crowd to attend Women's World Cup games since the inaugural tournament of 1953 held in Chile. So good job, folks. What I like to see is that people are starting to catch on and see that women's basketball, the WNBA, and these ladies on the Olympic caliber team is really fun to watch. And just like I was telling you before, if you're a basketball purist and you like to see a team come down and pass the ball 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 times before they take a shot, run an offense. No, not a one-on-one situation, which is what the men's game has turned into. Then go watch the women's basketball. Ladies, I want to congratulate you. You did wonderful. And remember, like I said, the Dr. Jimbo Love Show featuring Seth Matthew will be covering something with the women each and every week. Again, I'm not going to get involved with the NFL games. They're happening right now. But in the meantime, I want to thank everyone for tuning in. The LinkedIn crowd has been wonderful. You guys are sharing your link and everything else. I posted in 2 different sites, the oil and gas investor site, which is fantastic. We have a lot of different views there. And then just my regular site, which is, of course, Jim Gulick on LinkedIn. And you can spell that last name Gulick. Got some bees around me. It's wonderful. Wonderful. I just don't need to get stung today. So next week we will be back at Brothers Bar and Grill in the shops of Northfield. Feel free to tune in. Also, too, I'm standing under a tree. Let's talk a little bit about Forever Green Farms out of Ithaca, New York, and Scott Howard. I made a mistake last week. His number is 607-227. I said 277. It's 227-3500. Folks, if you need any kind of evergreen tree, any size, 10 to 12 footers, even as big as 35 footers, they can dig them for you. They put them on a flatbed truck and they will send them anywhere in the country. So reach out to Scott Howard. Remember, you've got to get a tree that's been dug properly and dug at the right times, or you'll end up spending all this money on a tree and the doggone thing will die. So buy it from somebody who's got the trusted reputation, Forever Green Farms, Ithaca, New York. Talk to Scott Howard. Again, the number 607-227-3500. Again, folks, people are at Brothers. I talked to Seth this morning. And get your butt down there, have a beer. Ask him to turn any TV to whichever game you'd like to see. Even if it's something like a soccer game or a rugby game, they've got all of the packages and they will hook you up. Folks, I want to thank you again for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Again, we'll be at Brothers Bar and Grill. Somewhere between 10 and 10:45 will be our start time. The restaurant opens up at 11. We'll let you in early if you're coming to watch the show and bring you up to the mezzanine section, which is our special section. And you can watch us live. And I'll see if I can get Seth to give you some free beer or free drinks, maybe a free appetizer. We'll see. Whatever's in the budget for the Dr. Jimbo Love Show featuring Seth Matthew. All right, folks, as I say every week, get out there, get your side hustle going, and earn it, as Tom Hanks' character said in Saving Private Ryan. I am broadcasting live from the Arkansas River in Salida, Colorado. Thank you for tuning in, folks. We'll see you next week.